All right, welcome everyone. This is our Human Resource Personnel Change Meeting, December 8th, 2022. The time is 10 a.m. I'm calling this meeting to order. In attendance are Commissioners Brooks and Duncan. I assume Commissioner Filius will join us. Are there any changes to the agenda? Okay, hearing none. Our first item is salary for incoming juvenile detention director in juvenile detention. Sylvia, you and I guess, are handling this. So we did approve the succession plan that the juvenile detention had been working on for several years, and Eric Sheffield's been here 26 years.
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, so we had approved him taking over for Linda after she retires around the end of April. So at this point, there was a request that he would come in at grade 15, step 4. I think that is reasonable, and it lines up internally, not eternally. So, Sylvia, anything else?
Yes, so Linda and I both worked on this and evaluated it, and that would be our recommendation to bring Eric in at a 15-4 starting May 1st of 2023.
Okay, fantastic. Questions, Bill?
That's a lot of money.
Yeah, and it's a really serious job.
And it falls within the promotional policy.
Yep.
of
And with his
compensation.
experience being here 26 years, the step aligns per policy. So. Right. Hi, who's joined us by phone?
Oh, hi, Leslie. Darren here.
Hi. We are just discussing the first item, which is juvenile detention director, what their salary will be starting. So, do you have questions or? Okay, then I would entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the salary for incoming JDET Director of Juvenile Detention as suggested by HR.
Second.
Bill Brooks.
Aye.
Chair Duncan.
Aye. All right, motion passes. Item 2, request for extension of variance pay, KCSO 911. And Lieutenant Higgins is here to lead us.
Yeah, Lieutenant Higgins, for the record. As you know, Cheryl Halgren, one of our IT personnel, has been working in the 911 center for a couple days a week to help with our staffing woes. That was set to expire the end of the month, end of December. I'm asking that we continue that through at least through the end of spring. We have 3 trainees in the system right now, and we're hoping to have them on the floor by then, and that will hopefully resolve some of our staffing woes. But until then, we still have those problems, and Cheryl's agreed to do that, and the auditor's office has been in contact. I contacted the auditor's office, and it's budget neutral. The pay would come from our salary salvage out of the 911 budget.
Okay.
So how are the woes there now?
We have
Are they
8
getting less?
Yeah, it's getting there. We have 8 vacancies currently. We have 3 in training. We have 4 currently in background. We've lost a couple in the last couple weeks due to whatever reasons. And we'll open up announcements again next month in January. We should be in a position where we can start taking more applicants in January.
Okay, great. Any other questions? All right.
I move that we approve the request for extension of variance paid by KCSO on 9/11.
Second.
Bill Brooks.
Aye.
Chair Duncan.
Aye. Motion passes. Item number 3, request for higher duty pay, KCSO, and I believe this is Captain Miller.
Yep. Good morning, Commissioners. Stu Miller for the record. I have a lieutenant that went on FMLA leave October 26th. At that point, I made Sergeant acting in her stead, and I just got notice November 22nd that her leave has been extended until
January 26th.
And so, per policy, I am requesting the sergeant be paid the stipend to commensurate with his position.
All right. And then does the suggestion fall in line, Sylvia, with policy?
Yes, he would continue. Didn't he receive that level of pay in the past?
In the past, yes.
Yeah, and then it
Correct.
was just expiring. Yes, it is
Okay.
appropriate.
And per policy, it retroactives to the first date of that he was appointed to that position, so October 26.
Okay. Any questions? All right, I would take a motion.
As outlined in our agenda, I move that we approve the request for higher duty paid by KCSO.
Second.
Bill Brooks.
Aye.
Chair Duncan.
Aye. All right, motion passes. And item number 4, request for hiring bonuses, KCSO.
Good morning,
Sure.
Commissioners. Under Sheriff Brett Nelson for the record. We currently have 8 vacancies in our patrol bureau with another pending retirement before the end of the year. That being said, we've had ongoing discussions with possibly utilizing hiring bonuses. We budgeted $60,500 for such hiring bonuses. And after consideration, we initially submitted to the board a $5,000 signing bonus, which would be $2,500 up front and another $2,500 following certification. But upon further reflection, we'd like to make it a $5,000 signing bonus and a $2,500 relocation for those who have to relocate to the area. This was done after further discussion with certain agencies within the geographical area that are offering a $10,000 signing bonus with $5,000 up front. We wanted to fall in line with that. So with that being said, we would like to utilize that $60,500 budgeted item to pursue filling and attracting applicants for those 8 vacancies we currently have on patrol. It would be a budget neutral item since it was in fact budgeted for this year's fiscal 2022 or 23, budget.
Okay, so the lateral bonus agreement doesn't exactly line up with the email. So, because it says that a one-time payment in amount of $5,000 first regular paycheck. So is that, on the email, it talks about half first paycheck, half upon
Correct. That was the
certification.
initial one. As I stated, upon
Okay.
further discussion and reflection, we wanted to offer it a $5,000 upfront because that is what other agencies in our geographical area are doing.
Okay.
They have a $10,000, but they offer $5,000 upfront, and we want to fall in line with them to hopefully attract that. So not only would they have the $5,000 upfront, but those who had to relocate to the area would have a $2,500 stipend.
And it's
Okay.
for laterals only, right?
Laterals, correct,
Okay,
and
I
that is
don't-
true,
I don't
only for
remember if
laterals
you
for
said that.
patrol
Yeah,
positions.
the 24-month experience, so.
Correct, and in that agreement that was presented to the commissioners, legal has in fact looked it over. There are restrictions or guidelines to follow. If in fact they don't comply with that, they will have to pay back the money.
Yeah, before a year. Okay, questions?
Nope.
Okay, motion?
I move that we approve the request for hiring bonuses with KCSO.
Second.
Bill Brooks.
Aye.
Chair Duncan.
Aye, all right, motion carries. And just as long as it doesn't go over the, if it's going to go over the 60,000, please bring it back to us.
We will.
Okay, thank you. All right, number 5, vacation hours.
Wait.
I'm sorry.
Pardon, did we need to put in the, along with the hiring bonus, they might be eligible for that relocation bonus in the motion, or are we covered?
I thought it was 2 separate. If I
Did
recall
I-
correct,
I missed part of it,
I think there was
sorry.
2 separate forms. They had one for the relocation and one for the signing bonus separate.
Right, to me, that covered both. Dave, do you want it separated out?
And Darren was the one that provided it. He reviewed those and we went through it that way. So those are the ones that were provided from Darren to Marcia and I.
Okay.
You might just want to make it clear in the motion.
Okay, so should we just scrap that motion and start over? Okay. Sorry, Tina.
That's okay.
All right, I entertain another motion stating both of
How would
those.
the motion go?
I move that we approve the request for hiring bonuses, which includes the lateral transfer bonus and the relocation bonus, as outlined.
That was pretty simple. I second the motion.
Bill Brooks.
Aye.
Chair Duncan.
Aye, all right, motion carries. Item 5, vacation hours carry forward, KCSO.
Yes, Commissioners, Under Sheriff Brett Nelson again for the record. We currently have 2 employees that are out on extended IOD status. Their first one went out on July 24th, the other one went out on May 17th. Both will be in excess of their 240 hours. One will have approximately 86 and a half hours over that, and the other one will have 29.5 hours over the 240 limit. I'm asking that we allow them to carry over for purposes of them being on the IOD status, that at a later date when they come back, they can begin to use that time.
Okay. And then do we have any return date for either one of them, potential?
Both have extended return dates as of right now, as of a week or two
Okay.
ago.
Under Sheriff, for everyone's benefit, what's IOD?
Injured on duty.
Thank you.
Yeah. Sylvia, is there anything else?
No, I think Brett's covered it.
Okay.
There was a projection in case the board chose to just pay that out, but the carry forward works and gives them the opportunity to use it when they get back.
And with that, I didn't want to speak to the paying out option due to the fact that it was so low of hours in big picture of things, but there is a financial, obviously, issue if we do want to, in fact, pay the amount, those two employees.
Being down 9 positions in patrol, and I'm not sure how many in the jail, wouldn't it just be a little bit better to pay it out?
That's for clarification. I did want to open up the proverbial floodgates with regards to, if you will, such low hours of 29.5. I know Lieutenant Higgins and I spoke specifically in regards to one employee at dispatch who has, I believe, 25 hours. And we are going to try to work that out internally as opposed to seeking such a small hours because, again, we could have the propensity of people saying, well, instead of you trying to utilize their time up to the point of December 31st, I too have hours and we go that route.
I look at the IOD status differently.
Okay?
So that's where I draw that line. They don't have a choice. They can't use their hours right now.
I concur. I would open up to the board then for their best suggestion. We wanted to go this route initially in discussions.
Chris, thoughts?
Yeah, I think I agree with you. Do you want to go ahead and make the motion then?
Well, I want to ask if maybe it's not appropriate to contact these two people and say, we're looking at paying you out for these hours just because you have an extended absence, because they're just going to continue to accrue.
I don't mind that. If that's a suggestion of the board, I'll gladly reach out to them and then we can bring it back before the board in a next meeting or so.
How's that sound, Bill? Okay. Brandy, is there an issue either way?
No, that would be Sylvia's call. I don't really see any issues.
I don't see any issues because the situation's different from everybody else, the injury
Yes.
on duty. But
Correct.
if Brett wants to work with us, contacting those employees since they are on leave, either of us can do it or.
That's fine, and I'll gladly bring it before the board once I've spoken to both of them.
Okay, but today, do we need a motion, because it's getting near the end of the year where these things are going to drop off? So do we need a motion to at least keep those or reevaluate when they come back?
Can we hear it before the end of the year, or?
Yeah,
We have a meeting the 22nd.
22nd, correct?
22nd
Yes.
If
of
it's not
December.
resolved by then you probably want to do something to carry it forward.
okay.
I'll ensure between Sylvia and I, we will reach out to them and get an answer, and we'll have it presented before,
So that's
on the
in 2 weeks.
22nd.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, no motion needed. So item 6, county closures. Boy, is this a mess. So everybody's aware of the big snowstorm. Has it been 2 weeks already? Was it
Week and a
last week
half.
or 2 weeks?
It was a week
Yeah,
ago
it's like
last
when-
Monday, yeah.
Yeah, so anyway, and because people choose to handle things so differently, and we're trying to, as a county, not create inequities within or under elected officials, we're looking at bringing a policy forward. So I thought things pretty much went well last time, giving people flexibility based on what they do within the county, but I think we probably just need to have something a little bit more solid. So Sylvia, did you want to speak to
Sure.
that?
It is best practice to have a policy, a personnel policy that addresses weather closures, any type of all hazards type closures. One of the things I'll say is that FLSA, sorry about that, doesn't require the county to pay non-exempt employees if we do a closure. But my experience in HR and just from a morale and consideration, we would want to potentially consider paying our employees when we do a building closure, when the board says, hey, we're closing down, we should pay them admin leave with pay sort of thing. Some of the things my research I've done is, one, can employees work from home? In that snowstorm situation, all HR said, hey, let's be ready in case something happens, we can work from home. So we can do that. So if that option is available, can we deploy our staff to work from home? The other thing is, if the employee's on duty and the county does a closure, we would potentially offer them admin leave with pay and not make them use their leave balances for the closure. The other thing is, if somebody was already on leave, they just continue to use their leave balances because that was scheduled that way. They weren't scheduled to report to work. And then we would just have to look at exempt employees because they're treated a little bit differently based on the law. But I think HR is willing to put a policy together and bring it forward to the board. If you'll just give me direction on how you would like to see it. Are you wanting to give employees admin leave if the county calls for the closure?
Yes, but I'd like some stronger guidelines on when closure would be appropriate. And I think we can have that discussion in the EO meeting on the 21st. So if you want to work on some sample policy, because I was kind of disappointed that both driver's license and motor vehicle license closed, and I'm out here going from meeting to meeting, and I have customers in the parking lot going, they're closed. So that was kind of disappointing to me. It's like, if the public is braving this weather, then maybe the people who are already here should have just stayed here. But that's kind of my personal philosophy. We work for the people, and if the people are willing to come, then maybe we should be providing service. So I think we can.
I don't disagree with that, but there's also the matter of elderly employees, and some with disabilities and some without, and people who are not elderly, like me, who have a real hard time getting around in the snow, and it actually becomes dangerous. And
So
that has
there's-
to be taken into account.
Right,
Because if
so-
somebody comes out there and slips on the ice and breaks a hip,
Right, so there's two ways to do that. Number one, the employee had the option to say, I'm uncomfortable, I want to stay home. Number two, we're doing the work from home key too.
okay,
So people who can do
as long
that.
as it's recognized, because
But right now we have good roads and stuff, but you can still slip on the ice because there's
Yeah.
ice everywhere. So
Okay.
it's that balance thing.
I'm here.
Yep, yep. So anyway, Chris, thoughts?
Yeah, I think, if we make a decision that, the roads are dangerous and the employees, this is not something of their choosing. If we have inclement weather and we have potentially dangerous conditions, the employee should be paid for that. They're not taking that time off at their discretion. And so I think they ought to be paid.
Okay.
That's my general feeling.
I will draft a policy, and then there could be more discussion at the elected officials meeting next week.
Okay, thank you. All right, item 7, this is remote work, and we may end up going into executive session, maybe not. And so if we do, we will handle item 8 along with the executive session for item 7. So Sylvia, did you want to start?
Yes, I'll start, but I'd like Brandy, and I don't know if legal wants to come up, and Jody would like to come up because it's kind of been a concerted effort. So this, the topic that we're discussing is related to out-of-state remote workers. So HR, the auditor's office, and legal have been looking at the requirements of having employees work from out of state and what that might look like. So some of the resources we have already researched, we've gotten guidance from Ide Bailey. Ameriban HR provided us provided us some of the laws, and specifically relevant to California because this is the first area that we're looking at. We've reached out to PERSI. We don't have a response yet. State Insurance Fund, which is our workers' comp provider, Bonner County is utilizing remote workers, and they gave us their policy and how they're navigating that. State of Idaho remote worker policy how that might look. We looked at the California Employers Council and the State of California Labor websites to try and get some guidance related to how this works, what we have to do. The biggest factor we have to consider, some of the biggest factors are, we would be potentially considered doing business in the state, which subjects us to those state laws, including filing employer registration in the state, tax implications, labor laws, wage and hour requirements, leave laws, state disability programs, unemployment comp. We'd have to make adjustments to our personnel policies through an addendum specific to that state. What benefits they might get that's different than what we're offering our county employees. We'd have to post labor law posters, and there's probably more items that we need to consider, but those are just a few of the things we've looked at so far. Brandy has had a discussion with Ide Bailey, so I'd like for her to talk about that.
Yes, and I forwarded some of my information to Sylvia, so I might repeat myself a little bit, but I went back and forth with the head of their payroll tax consulting department and their HR consulting department. If we want a formal written up report from them, we're gonna have to sign an agreement not to exceed $2,000. But they were kind enough to just give me some general information via email without charging us. First, I was told we would be required to apply for California employer payroll account numbers, required to withhold California withholdings, pay all employer required taxes, including California workers' comp. We would have to follow all applicable California employment laws. And at this point, I would say we would have to rely on hiring some legal counsel in California because we don't even know what we don't know in regards to that, if that makes sense. And then the Percy, yes, I was told by Ide Bailey off the bat that wages earned in California would not qualify for Percy. We've heard some potentially different answers, so we haven't got clarification on that yet. I think to get a clear answer from Ide Bailey, we'd probably have to pay them to write up something formal. They don't work for free. And then in discussions with their HR consultant manager, once again, the workers' comp, Sylvia mentioned we'd have to consider altering medical and dental vision options for that employee to fit with the geographical area they're in. She said that California is considered an employee-friendly state, meaning there are laws that we would have to abide by that our employees in Idaho do not fall under, such as various benefits, paid time off, unpaid time away, certain types of leave that California has that Idaho does not. The consultant said there are significant employment law considerations because of the specific state. She said in her personal opinion, she would not recommend allowing remote work from California. Obviously, that's up to the board. And then she said as her main clarifying point, you do not have to allow remote work for someone in another state. The employee is making a decision to relocate, so they are essentially resigning. You can deny their request to work from out of state. You are never required to accommodate such a request. Auditor's office first became aware that working remotely might be an issue on November 15th.
Sounds to me like this would be a good thing for a committee to work on and not to try to hash out at a HR meeting.
And then I did
A lot more
also,
complicated.
I also wanted to add that there are going to be ongoing costs for legal services for the state of California, as well as we're going to have to make some modifications to New World, our accounting software, to equip us to be able to do payroll for multiple states and tax reporting for multiple states. That's going to be a pretty significant cost. I am still waiting to confirm that with Carrie. She's out right now. Or we would have to consider outsourcing payroll to an independent payroll company, something like ADP. That's going to be an added cost. And we just have a lot. If this is going to happen, that's a pretty big precedent for my department. We're going to have to make quite a few changes going forward to how we do payroll.
Okay. Chris?
I think this is a perfect candidate for an independent contractor agreement.
I agree.
We can beat this thing to death, but I'm hearing enough that we're going to incur increased costs, possibly liability. the individual in question is a key employee. I think we've all acknowledged that, but if the only way to handle this is with an independent contractor agreement, then that's the way we handle it. But I'd like to hear from Jody. Do you wish to jump in?
Well, I wouldn't be able to.
Sorry, you got to come to microphone.
Yeah, you probably want to keep, well, once we get into the individual, we're going to have to go into exec, so.
I mean, obviously, from an overall umbrella approach, I'm not familiar enough with all the details that obviously have gone into HR and the auditor's office, so I wouldn't be able to speak to that. But I would say that the value of the individual is significant, and any consideration by the board would be greatly appreciated.
I'm in favor of an independent contract to try to keep the employee without incurring significant problems over at least 3 or 4 different departments within the county. So, all right.
Maybe Dave and Darren, if they have any feedback they'd like to add?
Darren?
Yeah, we met with Jody the other day. I think operationally we can make an independent contractor agreement work. There are some details that we would need to hash out and need to make sure that it works with the employee as well. But it sounds like operationally that it will work for Jody's office. So that's something we can put together.
Okay. Dave, anything to add?
Well, I guess I have a couple of thoughts. Brandy gave a really cogent sort of breakdown of all the issues. The legal issue is particularly pertinent. Even if there's an independent contractor agreement that's in the works and potentially agreed to, I think Darren and I would both agree that you should still retain California counsel. Neither I nor Darren nor anyone else in our office are California lawyers. Even with an independent contractor agreement, you probably want to have it vetted by California legal counsel just to make sure we're not missing something. So that's an additional aspect. I guess I'm aware, based on the meeting that we had the other day, separate topic, there are some supervisory duties that are at play. It doesn't fit that a remote worker as an independent contractor can also be a supervisor. So I think you want to look at the position itself, which currently includes supervisory duties, whether or not that position can be retailored without those duties to fit into an independent contractor scenario, or whether or not that position itself can't be, and whether or not the person that we're talking about can occupy really a different position. So it's kind of a question of, you're going to eliminate a position, or you're going to change a position that's occupied by a independent contractor. And now what happens to those supervisory duties? Can they be assumed by someone currently in the office? It's not just as simple as saying we're going to peel off some duties. What happens to the position?
So
I
Dave,
think you need to rewrite the position, and HR can weigh in on that.
I have a question.
Yeah.
And you're bringing that up, which I think is pertinent. Are you saying that there may be legal considerations, or you're saying strictly from a business standpoint?
Well, I think there's both. I'm not certain how a remote worker can functionally provide supervisory duties to people in thousands of miles away. It just doesn't quite seem to fit. Jody's, I don't want to speak for her, but we discussed that issue the other day, so she's aware of it. So what I'm suggesting is, I think you need to look at the position itself, and you're going to have to work with HR to figure out what you want to do with that position.
Okay.
Okay.
I recognize you might want to keep this individual, but there's some changes also downstream of that. So those are my thoughts.
Okay.
Jody,
Oh, I just wanted to say that we currently work with teams, and so that is something that enables someone to be connected regardless of their location. To Dave's point, if it's an independent contractor, there has to be a separation of an employee versus an independent contractor, and I think to Dave's point and Darren's point that was what we should look at to determine so we are compliant with the independent contractor versus an employee. So
Yeah.
I would say that that is doable,
Okay.
but I clearly concur with what they were saying.
You.
Yeah, you'll just, as with an independent contractor, you always have to be careful about too much control over the manner and method of means of how they perform
Yeah.
their function. So independent contractors truly have to have sort of a set of deliverables that they supply, and they can't be controlled in how they do that, when they do that, the manner that they do that. So
And what I think,
otherwise, you run the risk of them actually being an employee, and
Yep.
that's where California legal counsel
okay,
comes
okay, I
in
see what
to
you- yeah,
determine
yeah.
what's the position look like. And I think this comes in, that's why the job description comes into play. What are the actual duties that the person will be doing from California? Because you want to minimize the manner and method and means and the amount of control you have over them, so they don't look like an employee.
Yep. Okay.
And I think that's a good point, because government at all levels is very sensitive to that.
And maybe you've already thought of this, but there may be also some political implications to Kootenai County, as a county in Idaho, employing people in other states and having to comply with other states' laws. So
Sure.
I'm sure you've thought of that too.
All right, so it sounds like a job for Jody, HR, and legal.
And it is time sensitive because
Yep.
the employee is already doing it, and we want to
Yep.
be able to comply with what California requirement is when they
Yes.
consider that an employee of the state.
Yep.
So maybe we can bring something back at the next HR meeting, or if we can get it done sooner, we'll ask to come to another meeting.
Yeah,
with the
it can
board.
be on a business meeting.
Schedule?
Yeah, or we can schedule a separate meeting if that needs to be, but otherwise we'll look for it no later than the 22nd of December.
Okay.
So,
I just have one question.
Uh-huh.
In terms of compensation, is that also something that we're going to discuss? And then,
yes, because once you separate those duties, does the level still rise to that compensation, which it might? And then that way it'll just maybe be a straight across kind of thing. So that is a key factor when you're going through the contractor agreement.
okay.
Okay, is that right? All right, anything further on this item? All right,
I'm fine.
and you're still good with going into executive session?
Yep.
Okay, then I would take a motion to go into executive session.
I move that we go into executive session.
All right, 74-2061B is the title.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Commissioner Filios,
Aye.
Bill Brooks.
Aye.
Chair Duncan.
Aye. And is there a motion to exit executive session?
I move that we exit executive session.
Staff to proceed as discussed.
Yes, I'm sorry, I always forget that.
Second.
Commissioner Filios?
Aye.
Bill Brooks?
Aye.
Chair Duncan?
Aye. All right, public comment? Hearing none. 10:54, meeting adjourned. Thank you.